I'm ready.
I changed into someone different now, yeah.
Okay, Paul.
Good afternoon, Jason. How are you today?
Good afternoon, Paul. I'm very, very well, thank you.
Good. And Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas. Yeah, I've got a Christmas tree in the background here. I've just put my Christmas lights up with my Lightwave controller on it. So yeah,
Brilliant.
raring to go.
Well, we'd like to thank you officially for turning on Christmas, and this is what it's all about. And we're going to turn it on smartly today, aren't we? That's the idea of Christmas going forward.
We certainly are. We're going to turn it on smartly, and then we're going to measure how much energy we're consuming during Christmas as well.
That would be, I've always wondered that because we see so much Christmas tree lights around. I wonder how much energy the cost of that is
Mm.
for the world, really, because it's across the world, isn't it?
I think it'd be quite surprising. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Jason, thank you very much. We have obviously met quite a few times, socially
Mhm.
and in business. We won't talk about the social side when we met at the famous football ground that we watched my team get battered, as they would say.
Yeah.
And we've been working a lot alongside each other professionally regarding your technology with our organisations. So I obviously know a lot about you. We've been building that like and trust. But for the benefit of our audience today, can you please give us your background story and tell us your origin story? Where does
Sure.
Jason
Okay.
come?
Well, um, my my career started really as an apprentice. So, and it's one thing I like to promote now, by the way. But I joined the Royal Navy at 17 years old as an artificer, which is a if you look at the word artificer, it means craftsman. So I'm mechanically and electrically trained, and I spent the majority of my life in the Royal Navy in the submarine service on Polaris submarines, which is the UK's well, it was the UK's nuclear deterrent submarine when I joined some 35 odd years ago. So, as I say, I spent 8 years in the Navy, had an absolutely fantastic time, met some very very good people, and really learnt an awful lot about trade and industry and a lot technically, but I learnt an awful lot about myself as well in terms of capability. You know, the things that I never even dreamed that I could achieve and do. The Navy and the forces certainly give you that opportunity.
Yeah.
Um, and then when I left the Navy, I wanted to do something a little bit different. So I joined an American company who specialised in vibration analysis. It was one of the things that was obviously kind of close to our speciality when we're in the forces, especially in the submarine service. We had to
Yeah.
be quiet, so we were always conscious about anything that makes noise or anything that vibrates, and basically I ended up specialising in rotating machinery and the reduction of noise and interference from rotating machinery. And I did that for a good 7 or 8 years, literally traveling the world: Russia, Libya, Iran, Iraq, all over the Middle East.
Wow.
And again, had an absolutely super time, learning different cultures, meeting different people, training people in different languages. So it was very good. I'd got my first two children by that time, and my wife was very keen that I actually probably spent some time at home for a change, having been out for the previous kind of 15 years. So
Was you married when you was in the Navy?
I got yes. So one of
Wow.
my very last acts when I was in the Navy was to get married.
Right.
So I had a naval wedding with
Brilliant.
lots of chaps in uniform. It was it was tremendous. Um, so I came home basically at the end of at the end of that period, and I got a job relatively locally, and moved into the telecoms world, which again, building on my expertise in terms of electromechanical engineering, and then being a kind of global services engineer, it was something completely different. And the world that it brought me into was more of a sales focused world. I started off by being operations manager for a telecoms business. The business that I joined grew from 3 million turnover, and through acquisition up to 166 million turnover. And I progressed through from being an operations manager through to a sales director. So it was quite an interesting journey, looking after some very large corporate accounts, developing a very big public sector focused business as well within that. Yeah. So it really was the foundation of my kind of commercial knowledge, and was a very, very good schooling in that. And then in more recent times, so my last two roles, by the way, I always stay somewhere for probably between 7 and 10 years. So right. It sounds like I've done a lot, but I've stayed where I've been for quite a while. So my last two roles, the first company was a startup. I fancied doing something completely different. It was private equity backed, and it was focused in the energy world, in the energy space. So the company actually developed an AI platform and algorithms and a machine learning platform to basically decipher energy consumption data produced by smart meters and other devices, and turn those insights into something useful that we could push back to either the consumer or the energy businesses that had these consumers as customers. Probably slightly unfortunately, we're probably 10 years ahead of our time in terms of capability and the market. Yeah. And we all know what a challenge the rollout of the smart meter kind of UK rollout was, or has been. It's been fairly torturous, to be honest. So yeah, I did that for about 5 years, and again that was global. So talking to energy companies globally, North America, Australia, literally all over the world, who all have exactly the same challenges. Yeah. In predominantly customer retention. So we were trying to help them with insights into their customer base around the behaviours, and around customer behaviours aligned to renewal of contracts and things like that. So it was quite an interesting field. A lot of boffins, a lot of doctors who analysed bits and bytes. And then nearly 7 years ago, I was speaking to a friend, and he said, "Look, I've got a great business called Lightwave, who have got a good track record, kind of leaders in their field. They've been around a long time, and they need some help with their go-to-market strategy and maybe polishing the company a little bit." So that's when I joined Lightwave, and here I am today.
Did they say the rest is history, or is there some bits in between?
There was some. I mean, in between. They're the main roles I've done. I've not kind of been anywhere else really. So quite a varied set of roles really. And I've got to say that the one I'm in at the moment, it's my first CEO role, which is quite interesting. And I've joined a company that have the inherent capability in this, and probably a pioneer in the smart home market. I mean, I know yourself, Paul. You've had Lightwave technology for probably over 10 years now, haven't you?
Yeah. Well, 2009, I installed it in my house.
Well, there you go. Yeah. So the company itself was born out of helping people. Yeah. So John, our founder, who's still with us in the company today as CTO. John's expertise was in helping people with profound disability through the use of technology. And using that technology to help them live their daily lives. And if you roll that forward, that's just exactly what smart home is all about. It's about helping people live their daily lives through the use of technology. So Lightwave really are and were a pioneer in the field.
As a magnitude measure, how many devices now you got connected? Because you can actually identify that on
Absolutely.
servers, can't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
What's the number of devices now you got out there?
We've got over 50,000 customers, and we've got over 1 million connected devices. So
wow.
That's
global, isn't it?
It is global. Yeah, we're predominantly focused in the UK. Anywhere with a UK background in terms of their electrical products, so places like Hong Kong and the UAE. But also we've got a fully fledged European range that we've developed, Type E and Type F sockets and European form factor lighting. So yeah, we really do have the ability to go globally, probably with the exception of North America. But
I remember in 2009-ish, I had a meeting in your Tamworth area. I can't remember the offices. It's a big technical office block where there's lots of startups and all, but the boffins were all based as such. And I remember sitting around this big desk, and we was talking about the roadmap, and I was being asked some ideas. And John said, "Oh, what's your postcode?" And he typed the postcode in, and they found my hub.
Yes.
It's on a big screen. Yes. It's probably changed now. The map of the UK, and they went in, and they found my hub. How impressive was that? That was in 2009. That really, and I always remember that back. It's amazing, really.
It is quite interesting, actually. Yeah, we've got the concept of geolocation in our devices. So we use geolocation as a driver for automations and for to help you again set up routines in your house for when you leave home and when you come back to home. I suppose one of the interesting things that we do from a commercial perspective, we've obviously got a heat map of where our customers are based around the world, in particular in the UK. And we've also got a heat map of where our customer spend is as well. So literally we can go down into a street level and see how much, if it's really red, that's a great street, and we'll focus on that area.
Right. That's brilliant.
But we even do that kind of thing as well.
Yeah. So before I forget, I like to go back a little bit. Don't think I've forgotten anything, because I'm going to drag the past up a little bit.
Sure.
You said you learned a lot about yourself when you was in the forces. And I'm sort of trying to gather the fact you spent a lot of time on Polaris. Yeah. What's the longest you spent underwater?
I can't tell you.
Oh, really?
I can't tell you.
A long time, yeah?
A long time. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Certainly measured in months.
Right.
Yeah.
And what was that like? Can you tell us about what was going on in your mind and what you learned about yourself?
Very boring, actually.
Really?
So if you look at the cycle of a typical submarine, it roughly goes in 3-month blocks. So you spend 3 months getting your submarine ready to go to sea. You spend X number of months at sea, and then you're on holiday for 3 months, effectively, when you come back, and the other crew takes over, and the cycle carries on like that. So for the 3 months where you're working the submarine up and preparing it to go to sea, it's very intense. It's literally 7 days a week. 7 days a week, making sure that all of your systems are well maintained and that all of your systems are working properly. Because the thing about a nuclear deterrent submarine is, once it dives, it never ever surfaces, unless there's something going on in the world. Problem. Well, even if there's a problem, even if machinery breaks down, if somebody
you go and fix it.
So somebody dies on board, you do not surface that submarine. Okay. So once you're out there, you have to fix it. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things that I was, in terms of my personal approach to things. One of the biggest things I was taught is that you've got no choice. Just get on with it and fix it. Get on with it and make it work. And I still operate like that today. And you'll remember I said that my next role after the Royal Navy was going around the world as a vibration analysis engineer. It actually installing a lot of capital equipment, big pieces of machinery. on my own. I'm still only a young lad. I'm still only 20, 24, 25 years old. And I look at 24, 25-year-olds nowadays, and they're just leaving university maybe.
Yeah.
But literally, I was traveling the world with the attitude that, well, I can't go home, I can't fly out, and because it's not working, get it in there and fix it.
Yeah.
So there are a number of lessons that the forces taught me in terms of my attitude to my job. A fairly obvious one. I think in terms of my personal approach, you'll never experience anything more daunting than shutting the hatch and going underwater for months on end. And that's absolutely true. You'll never experience anything more daunting than that. No. So anything that I come across in life now, frankly, in comparison, is it's easy. Yeah, it's easy. So and the hardest thing I find is actually remembering that. So every day we're all approached by things that challenge us, and things that we don't want to do, and things that are daunting. But then the thing I forget to do occasionally is remember back to the really, really daunting things. The really, really hard things that I was put through during the forces. So when I do remember that, it brings everything into perspective. And I think that's some very, very valuable lessons. The other major one was the value of friends as well. So friends and comrades, and also the approach to those people as well. If you're living in close quarters with people for a very long time, you've got to get on with people. And
no choice, have you? Yeah.
You've known me for a while now. I'm quite an affable chap. I don't get angry very often. I don't think, in all my years in business, I don't think I've ever raised my voice. You don't need to. It's all about bringing people on the journey with you, and convincing them of your way of thinking.
And these are all the core values for a CEO. A successful CEO is having those core values, isn't it?
Completely.
I've learned.
Yeah, completely. So it's building on the experiences that you've had. And I suppose the hardest part about it is if you can bring those core values out naturally without effort. That's how I would judge. Yeah. That's how I judge myself personally in the way I approach my role now as CEO. Yeah. And I think to a large degree, I'm like that. I do that. And I certainly
within your role that you've got now. Is the role today different to what it was when you started? Have you managed to bring Jason into that business now in your core values?
Yeah, most certainly. I would say so. The business I joined is very, very different to the one that we have now. Mm-hmm. We've gone through a few natural disasters, including COVID. We've gone through global chip shortages. We've gone through quite a few challenging times.
Yeah.
So, and those colour the way you think and the way you operate and change your direction. But certainly what I've tried to do with Lightwave is keep things simple, actually. Sorry, I had a call come through then. I've tried to keep things simple. So I've tried to simplify our go-to-market. It was highly complex. We were selling into premium retailers like Apple, Selfridges, John Lewis's. We were selling through big distributors, big warehouse distributors. We were selling into electrical wholesalers. We were selling to consumers directly, and then we were trying to sell into Europe. And frankly, it was just too complicated. It was just too big a job, and our margins and turnover didn't warrant it. So I set about really taking it back to basics. And now we sell through 3 primary channels. The fourth one we're going to talk about in a moment, which is commercial, but 3 primary channels. So we sell directly to consumers, and that's been the core bread and butter of our business for a number of years now. Yeah, and we do a fantastic job of it. And if you look at Trustpilot, which is a very good measure of Trustpilot's not necessarily a good measure of what your product's like. Trustpilot is an excellent measure of how good you are as a company at servicing your customers. Yeah. And we're 5 stars. We are the only smart home company with 5 stars Trustpilot. Okay, and that's because we focus on trying to make sure that the customer experience is a good one. Yeah. So we sell directly to consumers. We sell through Amazon because actually what we find is that consumers want to understand and learn about products before they buy them. They do their research. The best place to do research is the real world customer reviews that you get through Amazon. So it's a very good adjunct to our own direct business. And then the third channel that we sell through is the pro channel. So this is NIC, EIC qualified electricians. We have 623 Lightwave pros around the UK, and those are engineers who've been trained to install, program, and sell Lightwave devices. And again, as an adjunct to our Amazon and consumer business, it's excellent because we'll get customers, consumers who have the capability and wherewithal to install the product themselves, but we'll get an equal or more customers who don't want to do that and they want to be introduced to an electrician. So we've got that perfect triangle there. Yeah. And then the final area that we sell through, and this is one that's been developing now for a while, is directly to commercial businesses. So it's a commercial operation. It's obviously completely different to our normal consumer sell, but actually it's my bread and butter. It's my background. It's where I've come from, and I think it's obviously a completely different approach to the consumer world. The consumer world is typically very much about experiencing the benefits of smart home and automation of controlling your lights. It's about the look and feel. It's about telling your friends about it. It's about the demonstration. It's about the theatre of smart home in a lot of cases. Obviously, the commercial world is nothing about that. It's all about costs. It's all about energy reduction. It's all about sustainability. It's all about measurement. And I think we're fortunate as a company that we've spent a long time, learning our trade and developing a range, and it is a big range of associated products through the one platform. So we're fortunate that we spent a long time developing that range, because now we can simply, and in fact, it's not even a shoehorn, we can simply apply that range into the commercial world very, very seamlessly now.
Yeah. Obviously, it comes with different challenges, doesn't it?
Of course it does, yeah.
Because when you're selling into the commercial sector, you've really got to show them how it works. You've got to hold their hands, and and they don't always sort of get that from the for me, the residential world is a lot of pull. That market pulls, where this is a lot of push, isn't it? Yeah. I've been involved with some of these projects where we've had to push it in initially on trials to show how the technology works.
Absolutely.
They get it, and then it starts to sort of open up, really.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So we've realised that actually we're good storytellers. Okay, and we've got a lot of experience in storytelling in that consumer space. It's a different kind of story in the commercial world, and you're absolutely right. It's about showing. So our typical way of engaging with a commercial customer is through what we call an energy assessment pilot, where we'll actually go and at our own cost, we'll install some Lightwave technology into the customer's premise, and just do some simple measurements. So, if it's a commercial building or a stadium environment or something like that, we'll go and look at some of their small power devices, 240 volt devices, and we'll install some Lightwave kit, and we'll measure how much energy that is consuming over a period of time. And I don't think there's been a single instance yet where, number one, a customer said, well, that's not a very good idea. Why would we want you to come and do a free of charge estimate of what, what our small power devices are actually consuming? Okay, that's great. And there's not a single customer who hasn't been amazed by the results.
Yeah.
So I think what I've found certainly in the last 12 to 18 months is that it's very easy for corporates, larger commercial organizations, to focus on the big ticket items, the overall energy consumption. Yeah. Let's look at the rate that energy is costing me. Let's think about putting solar in our building. Let's think about all of those big ticket items.
Yeah.
Everybody forgets about the small ticket items. Yeah. They forget about the the kind of fridges and the TVs and of this world, because individually they might not consume a lot of energy, but actually collectively
it's multiple, isn't it?
It can be considerable.
Yeah.
The other side of that is whilst I think there's a consciousness shift towards looking at those items now. It's definitely happening. The reason that Lightwave as a company is very, very well placed to address this market is it's about what I said about 5 minutes ago about the range of products. So we've spent years and years developing quite a broad range of products to suit the consumer space, which is all 240 volts. Guess what? Those devices are actually very, very appropriate for small power management within the commercial world.
Yeah.
And we're finding now that actually, because of the breadth of expertise that we've got and the breadth of the product range that we've got, we can control heating, lighting, and small power as well, all through a single platform, a single app, a single hub. Actually, there's nobody better placed than Lightwave to service that market as well.
Yeah.
So I think it's not a pivot for Lightwave. I think it's a very, very interesting and will ultimately be a very strong new channel to market for Lightwave.
So you talked about savings that you're finding on these trials, and in general, what are the general savings that can be made through deploying Lightwave products?
It's quite varied actually. So if you look, I'll give some examples. Places that we're actually focusing on at the moment are event environments, so large stadia, places where typically they're used infrequently.
Yeah.
So if you look at a stadia or stadium, they might be, a typical football stadium, for example, might be used a maximum of 30 or 35 times per year. So actually they've got 330 odd days in that year where there's no usage. So unless that operational team is very focused on making sure that the devices within that environment are switched off, they've still got the same cost throughout the year. So what we find is that we've got different categories of focus when we go and install a stadium. So, for example, if you look at a typical football stadium, there are TVs all over the stadium. There are literally hundreds and hundreds of TVs in a stadium.
You have TVs, and you also have like the pricing displays and the advertising for
menus,
burgers, etc. Don't you?
That's right. Yeah, menus. So you have TV showing, sporting
Sky maybe.
Yeah. You have TV showing menus and stadium information. You have TV showing stats as well. That's a quite a big thing actually within stadiums. And these TVs, again, a modern TV probably takes between 50 and 80 watts of power. You multiply by 50 and 80 watts of power by 24 hours, and all of a sudden you're up to 1.4, 1.5 kilowatts. So that's just one TV. You multiply that across the year at an average rate for a large commercial body, you're probably talking in the region of 150 to 200 pounds energy cost per year for that device. Yeah. So it is considerable. Multiply that by 200 in terms of, or 250 TVs around the stadium, you're into big money.
Yeah.
So going back to the event profile for an environment like that, let's say that site is used for 35 days a year. Actually, most stadiums that we come across leave their TVs switched on for the whole year. And sometimes they even show blank content on those TVs and think they're switched off, but they're not.
Yeah.
So we're reducing the consumption on TVs. Well, what's the maths? It's probably down to 10% of its normal consumption. So we've got a 90% saving on TVs in a stadium, which is again staggering.
Yeah.
When you look at things like refrigeration, it's a different beast. Refrigeration, you're running 35 events a year in a stadium, and again, around a typical stadium, you'll have food kiosks, you'll have bars, you'll have hospitality, you'll have entertainment areas, and each of these will have one or more, a number of fridges within them. Typically drinks related fridges. Those drinks related fridges are probably 2.5 to 3 kilowatts of energy per day. So it's again considerable. The difficulty that you have with fridges is that you can't just switch them off. Okay, if you switch them off, they'll warm up, and unless you ventilate them properly, you have kind of product issues and mold issues.
Yeah.
So what Lightwave have done is we've developed an algorithm, and it's artificial intelligence at the end of the day. In that we look at the operating cycle, the typical operating cycle of the fridge. So we all know that fridges are run by compressors. The compressor cools refrigerant that passes around tubes within the fridge to cool the product down. So we measure the compressor cycle of a fridge, which is basically the only moving part. Once that compressor cycle has completed and the fridge is no longer under load, we then switch that fridge off for a period of time. And it varies between 3 and 7 hours, depending on the environment. So, and what we found in that time where we've switched the fridge off is that, number one, the temperature of the fridge doesn't actually go up by a dramatic amount, but the consumption of the fridge goes down by about 60%. Yeah. So, and then after the 3 hour switch off, we'll switch it back on again for another hour. So we're maintaining the integrity of the mechanical parts of the fridge. We're maintaining the integrity of the cooling system itself, and we're also maintaining the integrity of the product that's in the fridge that's being cooled. Yeah. But we're still delivering, I would say, on average, 50 to 60% savings on a typical refrigeration unit. Yeah. Now, that is a very, very difficult thing to do for a company that doesn't have the capability. So again, Lightwave are pretty well placed to be able to do that as a fairly standard automation.
So could we say, as on average, the products can actually make a saving of in the region of 60%?
I would say, yeah, absolutely.
If you just look at a project,
yeah,
you can say, just looking at it, we're going to say, we're going to probably save about 60% of the energy just by deploying the Lightwave technology.
Absolutely, yes.
It's significant.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is very significant.
I've had it installed on my house, and I can tell you that I was paying £150 a month for my energy. I'm now paying 85. So I've brought it right down.
There you go.
And, you know, I use the voice control. So when I leave the house, I say, I won't say it now because it will shut my house down and turn all this off. But I say, 𝐂𝐸𝐬𝐥𝐸,
yeah,
I'm going out. And bang, the whole house shuts off. Yeah. Even, interesting story here. So before lockdown, everyone had PCs on their desks. And then after lockdown, so they sent everyone home, and then everyone wanted a laptop. Okay, whatever. So we went from PC on desks to laptops being carried around. Okay, more often. Then everyone said, "Oh, when I'm at home, I've got 2 screens because it's really hard to work off a laptop. I've got 3 screens myself." Yeah. Then they all go back to work. So when they all go back to work, What have they got now on their desk? They've got laptop, 2 screens, and a docking station.
Mm.
And this story just grows because, so how many days do they work? They work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, because Monday they work from home, Friday they work from home. So interestingly, you now go into a office block, and we may go in here on a Monday or on a Friday, it could be empty. But all these docking stations are all there, sitting there.
Yeah.
All the screens are in standby. All the docking stations are sitting there waiting to be plugged in. Again, so we looking at that project together.
Mm.
We've done a trial, around about 60% saving on one desk. And Simon said to me, "Oh, that's not much, is it, for us to save?" I said, "Now do the sums. There's 4,000 desks.
Absolutely.
Start multiplying that out. It then becomes very significant." And
So,
obviously the client's very keen to look at that.
yeah, so going back to our energy assessment pilot approach. So we measure. So we'll install some Lightwave products onto typical devices within the environment. So if that's an office block, we'll pick a bank of desks, printers, things like that. If it's a stadium, we'll do fridges and TVs, water heaters, panel heaters. And then whilst we're doing our measurement period, so it might be 2 or 3 weeks, so we get a good representative sample, we'll actually then go in and do a site survey. So we'll go and do a survey of the whole site, and we'll do a simple count of the number of devices around and the device types in the different areas around the environment. And from that, what we can then do is we can because we've got the energy consumption data of the devices in that environment. It's very simple then to produce a return on investment model that we can present back. And more often than not, they're very, very compelling.
Yeah. Well, with 60% savings, they're going to be, aren't they?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
That's all savings, all a profit to the bottom line and a return on investment.
The other thing that we find as well, Paul, is that obviously we've got we've got the financial side. We've got the savings. What does the return on investment look like in terms of if I install some Lightwave kit, how long will it take me to get my money back? The Building Controls Association, and this is the association that has BMS manufacturers as
BCA,
members. Yeah, they estimate that it's 5.36 years that it takes to get a return on investment from installed technology in the BMS environment. We're certainly within our focus here. We're talking at sub 2 years, easily sub 2 years,
easily,
for most areas. So the financial side of it is one thing. What we're also finding an equal amount of interest in is the sustainability side of things in terms of reporting. So never have organizations been able to report on this type of device before because they thought them insignificant. So actually now being able to give some qualitative and quantitative data about how these devices are running and how much carbon the equivalent usage is, etc., is again very, very interesting.
Yeah. I think as well, Jason, we've also got the life cycle cost analysis. So, for instance, we're turning all these screens off, say, very simply. Well, we must be increasing the life cycle of that screen because it's not being used so much. So if it's got X amount of hours that it can run for, we know that we've actually extended that. So sustainability-wise, going forward, that's another improvement because they won't have to replace that screen so many times. There's all that side of it as well.
Yeah, there's definitely an asset management benefit here as well. And actually one of the biggest areas we see it in is refrigeration. So it's very, very easy for us to identify through the consumption data and the patterns that we see, which fridges are either set to the wrong temperature or their operating cycle is inefficient. And we find that they're inefficient generally because of broken seals and things like that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And you just reminded me of another benefit. I remember we was with a client and we asked them how many products do they have out there, and they couldn't tell us.
Yes.
So guess what? Lightwave system brought them all back into an asset list.
Certainly.
And then we put the serial numbers, all the details on that. So now we can identify not only these are all the assets, these are where they are, and this is how much energy they're producing. So there's all these other benefits it starts to provide, isn't there?
Yeah, completely. Yeah, completely. Yeah.
Let's talk about the future. So here we are. We're starting to get control on small power, which I think is important.
Yeah.
Is there any, without giving any commercial ideas away into the big wide world of all the people that are going to listen to this today, but what's on the future? You got things that you got plans that you can share with us today?
Yeah, certainly. So Lightwave as a company is always innovating. So, every year we'll probably bring out 4 or 5, maybe 6 new products. And this year has been no different to any other year.
Yeah.
What we're starting to do now in the commercial space is look for products that can help us grow in terms of our ability to address the energy savings market within the commercial space. So one of the very big areas is it moving into a 3-phase capability. So the ability to measure and drive 3-phase devices, basically. Yeah. So probably can't give you any more details than that, but it's probably the most obvious missing part of our capability today. Yeah. And we're well down the line of developing something that can address that.
Which is a stepping stone into the commercial world, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant.
Well, Jason, I know you did tell me earlier that you have listened to my previous podcast.
Yes.
It's come to that stage where I like to put you guys on the spot, the interviewees, and ask you this question. So is there anything you can give back today as a takeaway for our industry?
I think, yes, certainly there is. So I think people overestimate actually how easy it is to implement this kind of technology. And until they've experienced it for themselves, I think it's really hard to imagine the benefits, the simplicity of installation, the simplicity of control. So what I'd like to do today is to a lucky listener or viewer give a Lightwave lighting and power starter kit so that they can actually experience Lightwave in their own environment. And let's go from there.
Yeah. And we have got a question because we kept emphasizing the question. Yes. That's why I was kept pushing you for an answer.
Yeah. So the lucky listener or viewer, the question they need to answer is, on average, what would you expect in terms of energy savings in a commercial environment by implementing smart technology?
Brilliant. And I will be giving more details about how you can answer that question going forward. But Jason, look, let's go back onto this. I'm really excited about where we've come with this journey. I've known Simon for a while now, and we've been talking about how can we get this into the commercial world. And I did try my damnedest in 2009, but you guys wasn't ready. It's all about fate, isn't it? When you guys are ready, and you're ready, and it's looking really good. And we've got some really good case studies behind us, which is
absolutely. And we really value the support of B2B Energy in helping us with this journey. Really, very, very, very good. Great network.
It's a brilliant network, and I'm really pleased the way it's started expanding, and then we're now getting opportunities that are coming off of other opportunities to reduce that consumption, which is perfect. This is where we want to be. So, Jason, I'd like to say thank you. I've been badgering you like mad to get you onto my podcast.
Apologies.
You're a busy guy. You're either busy or you're probably underwater somewhere. I think that's what the problem was. Do you ever get the urge to want to go back?
No. I always say the best move I ever made was joining the Navy. The second best move I ever made was leaving.
Yeah. How many years was it in total?
8 years.
8 years. Wow, that's amazing. I'm going to badger you even more when I see you, because I'm really interested in all these stories. Some of the challenges you have when you're underwater. Even like a simple thing, finding a washer. There might not have been a washer that fits, and you've got to go and make a washer. It can be down to that, can't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, you're absolutely bang on.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well, I look forward to many more conversations. I'd like to say thank you for coming and sharing this. I'm looking forward to see that person who gets that prize from today.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And lastly, I would like to say as well, look, Merry Christmas, and thank you for giving this Christmas present to everyone today on the podcast. And lastly, please, you and your family stay safe in these times.
Thank you, Paul.